The next chair is Sana Fatima. She is a 12th grade student at Minuteman High School in Lexington, Massachusetts. She is interested in the field of biotechnology and currently she is experienced in working lab environments and hopes to enter deeper into the medical field. With that being said, I'd like to welcome Sana Fatima.
Hi everyone, my name is Sana, and it is a great honor for me to introduce Dr. Kaiser Jamil. Dr. Kaiser Jamil is a distinguished scientist with a rich academic background spanning institutions in India such as the Bhagwan Mahavir Medical Research Center and prominent CSIR institutes, IICT and CCMB, as well as the University of Sydney in Australia and the University of Paris in France. Pass on the chair to Dr. Kaiser Jamil.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Kind introduction. I was really not going to present today, but our Dr. Sattar insisted that people are waiting, you should talk about it. And I know this topic is of very interest to not only to us, but many people around the globe, because prevalence of obesity, everyone has seen it has surged globally, becoming a significant public health challenge problem. And according to recent findings from the global burden studies and also from WHO reports, obesity rates nearly, 70% since 1975. So the latest global obesity statistic shows that in 2023, over 1 billion people worldwide were classified as obese, including 650 adults above 18 years and 340 million adolescents 5 to 19 years and 39 million children below 5 years. So this is the world statistics, which is very alarming. So the prevalence in countries like US and Saudi Arabia exceeds more than 50%. Rapid urbanization and dietary shifts have escalated obesity rates in nations like India, China, Brazil, and also obesity is emerging as a problem in urban areas due to the increased access to processed foods and sedentary lifestyle. So let us see what obesity is defined as in these days. It's a complex condition influenced by a combination of genetic, behavioral, environmental, physiological factors. Understanding these risk factors is crucial for developing effective prevention and management strategies. So, to define obesity, we the definition: obesity is a medical condition characterized by excessive accumulation of body fat that presents a risk to health. It is typically measured using BMI, that is body mass index, which is a person's weight in kilograms divided by the square of the height in meters. Health risks of obesity include several health risks like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and others. Symptoms of obesity, as anyone can imagine, it is so the symptoms of diabetes, type 2 diabetes, can be so that you cannot notice it cannot be noticed. In fact, about 8 million people who have it don't know that they have it. That is the pity of it. Being very thirsty is a symptom. Peeing a lot is a symptom. Blurry vision, being irritable, tingling or numbness in your hands or feet, feeling worn out, wounds that don't heal, yeast infection that keeps coming back. And the symptoms of obesity include below 18.5 BMI, which is underweight, and then 18.5 to 24.9 is the normal BMI for a normal individual. adult individual, and 25 to 29 is overweight, 30 to 34 is obese class 1, and 35 to 39 is obese class 2, and 40 and higher extreme obesity, that is class 3. So the physiology of obesity includes, we need to know that complex regulation exists, and we do not need to know individual factors. Identify leptin as an important factor. So looking at several parameters among the cholesterol family and among the leptin family, we find that the leptin gene has a great influence on increasing or decreasing the obesity factors. So in physiology, we have two diagrams to show how adipose tissue and endocrine organ can affect obesity. The adi, adiponectin, leptin, IL-6, TNF alpha, angiotensin enzyme, and other factors like resistance. These are the endocrine organ proteins which are important in the role of obesity. So on the other side, we have how the brain influences, where the energy expenditure and your energy intake and your leptin and insulin positive uh, hormonal factors influence obesity. So obesity is a significant risk factor for the development of type 2 diabetes due to several interrelated mechanisms. Obesity contributes to the pathogenesis of type 2 diabetes through the mechanisms involving insulin resistance, beta cell dysfunction, chronic inflammation, dysregulation of adipokinectin, and production and ectopic fat depositions. Another important point is the visceral fat, the fat which accumulates on your stomach, contributes to insulin resistance through inflammation process, and it increases free fatty acids dysregulations, adipokine production, ectopic fat depositions, and its endocrine functions. These mechanisms collectively impair insulin signaling and glucose homeostasis. Adiponectin is an adipocyte-specific protein that plays a crucial role in enhancing insulin sensitivity through several mechanisms. So the most important role about adiponectin is it enhances insulin sensitivity by improving glucose and lipid metabolism, reducing inflammation, and promoting effective insulin signaling. Its levels are inversely correlated with obesity and insulin resistance, making it a key target for therapeutic interventions in metabolic disorders. So below you can find a list of the primary risk factors for obesity. Type 2 obesity, type 2 diabetic mellitus, of course, and then cardiovascular disease is the next one, hypertension, osteoarthritis, and certain cancers like breast cancer or colon cancer, because it also relates to hormonal imbalance in the system. And dietary habits also form the most important parameter for insulin, for obesity. Not only the ones which I have listed, I'm sorry. Since I was not keeping so well, I just wanted to back out, but I thought, let me finish. At least I can tell you something about obesity today. The most important factor in the youngsters is polycystic ovary syndrome. How we can miss that, when girls and people are obese, they do have polycystic ovaries and they really run into lots of problems. So that is also one of the risk factors, primary risk factors for obesity. So obesity, how it leads to type 2 diabetes is you have the primary pancreatic islets, and then you have the beta cell component and beta cell dysfunctions, and you have beta cell failure. So this leads to obesity, and you have the visceral and epicardial adipose tissue increase in that, and type 2 diabetes. It may also lead to chronic kidney disease and hypertension. The endocrine and metabolic factors include hypothyroidism, then uh, Cushing syndrome, and polycystic ovarian syndrome, which can slow metabolism and promote fat accumulation. Insulin resistance or hyperinsulinemia can lead to increased fat storage and weight gain, a vicious circle for obesity and also for metabolic dysfunction. The other important biological factors which influence obesity are the gut microbiota. So, the imbalance in gut microbiota can influence energy metabolism and fat storage, increase in obesity risk. Other most important biological factor is our epigenetics, the environmental exposures during developmental periods, gene expressions, predisposal to obesity. Obesity arises from an interplay of genetic susceptibility, unhealthy behaviors, and environmental factors. Targeting these factors through lifestyle modification, policy changes, and individualized healthcare interventions are essential for prevention and management of obesity. Obesity is a heritable trait influenced by interplay of genetic, epigenetic, metagenomics, and environmental parameters. So this is a flowchart about how abnormal insulin sensitivity can lead to hyperinsulinemia, and that leads to central obesity. That means insulin resistant syndrome, progressive loss of beta cells, like I showed you in the diagram, and impaired glucose tolerance. The mechanisms which are involved in obesity induced insulin resistance include approximately one third of these people develop type 2 diabetes mellitus. It is commonly believed that primary cause of type 2 diabetes is obesity driven insulin resistance in non-adipose tissues, combined with insufficient secretions of insulin by the pancreatic beta cells to overcome this resistance. So the biochemical pathways and mechanisms are in the next slide, where you can see that adipose tissue dysfunction. in obesity leads to lipolysis, free fatty acids, lipotoxicity, impairment of insulin signaling in the target tissues, and insulin secretion. Systemic insulin resistance and impaired insulin secretion leads to type 2 diabetes. Then the second and the third and the fourth pathways are also there, wherein adipose tissue dysfunction can influence glucose uptake, leading to glucose toxicity, thereby leading to impairment of insulin signaling in target tissues and insulin secretions. The third pathway is adverse adipokine secretions. Adiponectin and decreases and leptin increases in this pathway, where you have the same mechanism where you have the impairment of insulin signaling in target tissues. Then the last and the fourth signaling pathway includes pro-inflammatory cytokines. Cytokines are also inflammatory molecules which are very, very important, even though we have listed last. The IL-6 and PA1 and MCP1 TNF alpha are the molecules which are important. So here you have the same thing which I was talking in the previous slide, diagrammatically representing, starting from the adipose tissue, how they interact with the cell membrane and accumulate and transfer and into the interior of the cell and trigger the signaling molecule pathways. And therefore, obesity and its inflammatory markers have significant effect on diabetes and chronic conditions. A detailed insight into the chronic inflammation, immune and hormonal disturbance related to the pathophysiology of obesity and their effects on chronic condition and key biomarker studies will be most useful for a new project for any new student. To prevent obesity and type 2 diabetes, it will be useful to educate individuals regarding diet and exercise as a lifestyle change and understand pathophysiology of obesity and type 2 diabetes and its consequence to contribute from their specialities and drive better patient outcome. So this is the message which I like to give to the audience, that educating patients about the genetic, epigenetic factors that influence health can empower them to take proactive steps in managing this condition. Enhanced understanding of genetic, epigenetic, and epigenetic contributions to obesity can help shift the perspective from blaming individuals for their weight to recognizing obesity as a complex disease with multiple contributing factors. See what I mean? This very important statement which we like to make here is enhanced understanding of genetic and epigenetic contributions to obesity can help shift the perspective from blaming individuals for their weight to recognizing obesity as a complex disease with multiple contributing factors. So, discovery of genetic and epigenetic biomarkers could fa- facilitate early detection, metabolic changes associated with obesity and type 2 diabetes, allowing for their early and effective interventions. Knowledge of an individual's genetic and epigenetic profile can help tailor the and lifestyle changes and medical interventions to prevent or manage obesity and type 2 diabetes effectively. It may be possible facilitation of drug development efforts aimed at modifying epigenetic changes or targeting specific genetic pathways involved in obesity and type 2 diabetes. So, this is a complex phenomena where type 2 diabetes can also lead to obesity, and obesity can also lead to type 2 diabetes. So you can vice versa is possible. You have the epigenetic microRNA, then reactive oxygen species, oxidative stress, insulin resistance, pro-thrombotic, pro-atherogenic cytokines, and then you have the cardiac clock genes and inflammations. So these are most important factors, just filtered out to make a long story short. So this is a long story made short, that these are the simplified factors which can be type 2 diabetes leading to obesity or obesity leading to type 2 diabetes, as represented in the organs here. So, two key points. The eco rules. Fat is not our foe. It is a functional endocrine organ. Too much fat is bad. Too little is also bad. So, what we need is just right. I want to end here because I have a bad throat. I can go on talking about diabetes for a long time, but kindly excuse me that I have summed up lots of things in a short presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jamil. Now the space is open for any questions.
I have one simple question. Don't you think Dr. Jamil is the prevalence of diabetes in the South Asian population? One of the factors might be the dietary factors. For example, I find the South Asian food is rich in carbohydrate diet compared to the protein component. Doesn't it contribute to diabetes?
You are 100% right, because the diabetes which is prevalent in South India, it is much of the carbohydrate diet which is not visible. It doesn't lead to visible obesity, but it leads to obesity, to visceral fat. Many of the people there, they have visceral fat, like, the tummy on the most of the stomach.
Thank you, Dr. Jamil, and I hope that you